After sweeping away the two-time defending champion, World Series champion Los Angeles Dodgers, are the Chicago Cubs on their way to be the best team in the National League? On the south side, are the Chicago White Sox season slipping away? Is the sky looming on the south side, Hitman? In Bears training camp news, Ben Johnson gets a little testy with the media. And we'll have all other sports media nuggets and anything else we feel like talking about on this Fun Friday edition of the program. I'm Sid, LeKeena. Let's get this party started, which starts now.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Keep him on the field. And this one, a drop into left center field. Going back is Churio at the wall. Get out! Robert Jr., his fourth of the season. And the Sox take the lead 2-1.
Armstrong gets into another one. Sends Edman back. He's watching it land in the stands. What a night from Pete Crow Armstrong. Goes wide. Up the guard again. And he scores. What a play!
On Jordan Binnington. No chance at all for the Blues netminders. Connor Bedard. Wow.
Getting what a pass. Buzelis with the fade on the drive.
Motions up. They're blitzing. It's picked up. Caleb throws. Middle of the field. Love will catch. Breaks away the 30. Love the 20. Love the 10. Love the end zone. Touchdown Bears.
Welcome to this hashtag Friday Fun edition of Second City Sports, the first Friday show for the month of August. You're locked and loaded, and we're live in the living color right here on Sports Soul Chicago. Sid the Kid is me, LeKeena McGee is she. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter, X, and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You follow LeKeena McGee on the Twitter, X, and the IG.
Be sure to download that Sports Zone Chicago app wherever you get your apps. Please follow Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms on Facebook, X, Instagram, and YouTube. And if you're watching us live right now in living color on YouTube, after you like the video, if it allows you to do so, please hype the video so we can get this content out to as many people as we can to make it your number one destination for the best in Chicago and national sports talk. And thank you very much in advance for your support.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends.
We're unapologetically fun, and we have very definite opinions. If you have any definite opinion, do not 2 hours extravaganza we call the Sports Talk Radio Show, you got to hit us up at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in those questions or comments in the comment section. LeKeena will get the opening screen for you. But you decide to troll and or do something silly, dumb, or stupid, I've given LeKeena full powers to give you dumbos to be a lame beer boot.
Toodles.
But before we begin, shout out to our live game. That's LIVE Live. Entertainment game, and checking us out live in the living color right now at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook and YouTube channels at 12:21 p.m. Central Standard Time. But as always, much love to the replay game that's checking us out on the replay, also at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook and YouTube channels. Don't you ever forget our motto where we talk sports, music, or entertainment. We will always will provide.
We got a busy show here on Second City Sports to start off this first Friday in August. Our buddy Larry Hawley, former WGNTV producer, will join us to talk Bears and also baseball, as Isaac Ian will be honored this weekend as the White Sox host the Guardians. They're back home after getting swept by the Red Sox, who losing a tough one late last night. The Cubs are on a roll, though. After sweeping the Dodgers, they take their first game against the Blue Jays in thrilling fashion. And is PCA now the leader in the National League MVP race? We'll talk about that as well as sports media news. We'll have the latest on Tony Romo. And is he on his way out? And also, as the announcing teams, yes, we're getting to that time of year, folks, are starting to come in, and so much more. But first, we're going to go to Hallis and Bears. We'll talk about the rest. We'll talk all the rest of the NFL news, as soon as, including a lot of position guys getting paid and very handsomely. We'll talk about that after the break. But The Bears, nothing really big significant. Well, one of those guys did get a big extension. Bears offensive tackle Darnell Wright got a nice fresh paper. Of course, that happened earlier this week. 4-year, $116 million contract with $90 million guaranteed. So he is the highest. He'll be one of the highest paid tackles in the NFL. Of course, he's an All-Pro and deservedly so, paid handsomely. Like I said, deservedly so for some of the great stuff that he's done, helping keeping Caleb Williams upright for the most part last season, especially. But now, of course, I know Ben Johnson got a little bit testy, during his presser with the stuff about Kyler Gordon. Of course, there's still no updates about him. And also Kobe Bryant, he's saying that, well, the 8 to 10 week time frame for his knee injury, that might not be the case. So I guess Shefty's source is a liar, but again, I don't want to get into the weeds of that. So, Sid, what do you think about all this stuff that happened over at Bears camp this week, including Darnell Wright's new contract?
I'll start out with Darnell Wright first. So, of course, it was one of the first picks that Ryan Post had as a Bears GM. Is one of the few first round picks that he's had right thus far. Of course, Darnell Wright, as we talked about last season, LeKeena, he was one of the young anchors on that right side of that offensive line. He played with a shoulder injury for the majority of that season. Performed very well. He's a Pro Bowl type player, and he was handsomely rewarded, and rightfully so. Like you said, he was one of those offensive linemen that kept Caleb Williams upright last season. So we talked about on our last show that hopefully it was going to get done sooner rather than later, so we will not become a distraction. Now that issues behind, the Bears can focus on 100% focus on what's going on the field. Now, to Ben Johnson being testy with the media, I'll start with the Kyler Gordon stuff first. I agree with him. Kyler Gordon's out of his mind. Whenever he's ready to come back to play for the Bears, whenever he's fully healthy and ready to play, I'll worry about him then. I cannot worry about players who are injured. If they're not on the field, they're a liability, not an asset. So Kyler Gordon, until he's healthy, I'm not worried about him. Yes, he's very important to that Bears secondary, but if he's not available to play, why am I worried about him? So I'm gonna leave Kyler Gordon alone until he's fully healthy and ready to play. That's why I worry about him then. To the Kobe Bryant, I should say, news. I don't know about you, LeKeena. We've been covering this and talk about situations like this in all professional sports for a long time. We all know that there's a little bit of a gamesmanship going on here. So, and with insiders like Adam Schefter and others, their information cannot be 100% wrong. You're going to tell me it's been almost a week, and as soon as we get off the air, that Kobe Bryant has been injured. You don't have at least a timetable to determine when he's going to come back. If you don't know something by now, you're going to tell me after a week you don't at least know something in terms of going forward, how long it's going to be out. I don't buy it. It's a little bit gamesmanship, in my opinion, that's going on here. I know that the players, the coaches are not going to tell the media everything. We get that. But to act like that you don't have a timetable, at least a sort of a timetable when Kobe Bryant is going to come back, I just don't buy it.
I mean, look, like I said, if he wants to say that, it might be longer. And I know, look, I get it. You want to have gamesmanship or whatever, but look, you're going to have to tell the NFL something, because that's the rule. You have to tell the NFL what the injury is, especially for injury reports and such, not really just for fantasy, but for injury reports and such. So look, if you want to say that, it's going to be longer, if you want to try to make it, play possum with your opponent, that's fine. But you're trying to say that Shefty's one of the top NFL reporters in all of the league. So you're trying to say that he's a liar by saying the 8 to 10 week time frame. I mean, it could have been a lot worse, but again, he's going to be out for a while. And look, you're not going to, like I said, I don't want to get too much into this, because I think it's just stupid and silly. I know he's not the first coach to have done this. He won't be the last coach to do it. So whatever, but it just seems a little bit, I don't want to say high school football, just because it seems like this is something that they would do, but it just seems kind of stupid for him to do this, but whatever.
Yeah. You're listening to Second City Sports on Chicago. Sid and LeKeena hanging out here with you on a hashtag Friday Fun edition of the program. The first Friday show for the month of August. LeKeena, let's just wrap up the Bears talk since we have a few minutes before we had to break for the bottom of the hour. We'll continue the NFL news and nuggets on the other side, but just to give you a wrap up on the Bears. Their first practice in padded practice was on Tuesday. It was the longest practice thus far in camp. Of course, they open up the preseason next Saturday afternoon against the Cleveland Browns, but in the meantime, in between time, several key players went down with injuries. Hopefully, it's not too serious. Montez Sweat went out with an injury the other day. Of course, Braxton Jones, we talked about on our last show. In pencil, he's projected to be the left tackle. He also went out with an injury as well. LeKeena, these are the beginning of the dog days of training camp. It looks like the injury to Braxton Jones is not that serious. Hopefully, Montez Sweat is the same situation. Is there something to worry about if you're a Bears fan, or it's just, as I said, the beginning of the dog days of camp?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just one of those things where, luckily, I think Jones was back at practice today, so there seemed like there was nothing really to see there. Also, say too with Montez Sweat. So look, I think these things happen, like, especially when you go hard at padded practices. I mean, look, you can go hard, you can go a little bit lenient. I think some teams, it just really depends on what they do. So as long as look, you won't see anybody. You very doubtful you'll see any of the first stringers when they play their first preseason game next week. But it's just one of those things where you're just going to have to just grin and bear it, and hopefully just to avoid. Look, you already got one of your top guys out, Kobe Bryant, so you better hope that within the next few weeks of camp, you can avoid any more injuries.
Yeah, and also too, Devin Bush, as we talked about on our last episode on the show, he did well in practice this week. One of the young linebackers that the Bears brought in during the offseason, Xavier Thomas, a late round draft pick. He's starting to impress folks in camp on the offensive side of the ball. We talked about this guy. He was a key free agent that he wasn't talked about at the time, but Khalif Raymond of the formerly the Detroit Lions, now making a big impact as the veteran who replaced DJ Moore, who was traded to Buffalo. Khalif Raymond started to make a big impact on the field. We talked about him making a big impact in the wide receiver room when the Bears opened camp a couple weeks ago. It seems like this veteran wants to really make a big difference on this team, at least on the field. Ben Johnson knows him very well from his days former offensive coordinator in Detroit.
Yeah, I mean, I think could be definitely a formidable replacement for DJ Moore. He'll have some Caleb Williams will have somebody else to throw to, so that's never a bad thing to have more receivers. And we know he's a very solid receiver. He made some big catches a couple years ago. So look, I mean, if he can make an impact, that's fine. But like I said, I want to see it on the field. I'm not going to go by, well, this guy had a good practice. That's never been my thing. Like, let's do this instead. We're going to talk about it too when we talk about the Hall of Fame game later on. But I'm not that kind of person. Like, look, you had a good practice, fine. Do it on the field, and then I'll buy what your folks are selling about it. But like I said, he's been to a couple of Pro Bowls, so Ben Johnson knows it very well. I have no doubt that he's going to do just fine here in Chicago. We'll take a really quick break. Of course, we're going to have a busy second half hour. We're going to talk some star players. Darnell Wright was the only guy that got paid, especially if you're a running back. You got a nice. If you're a running back, a top running back in the NFL, you get a nice little bump there in your salaries, and also some more star players got paid as well. We'll talk about that. Also, too, the Cows will try to keep their streak going as they continue their series against the Blue Jays. Meanwhile, the White Sox, we'll see if they got anything left after losing a tough one. Not only a tough game, but a tough series getting swept by the Red Sox last night. And also the more MLB coming up, too. LeKeena, McGee, City Brown, Second City Sports. On Sports Chicago, more Gridiron and Diamond Talk coming up right after this.
Hey, it's your boy, the Superback, Sean Sierra, and be sure to follow Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms, on Facebook, Instagram, and our Roku channel. You can find us at Sports Zone Chicago, and on Twitter, we are at Sports Zone Shy. Also, be sure to download our mobile app so you can take Sports Zone Chicago with you on the go.
Got it done here. Ouch! And we're gonna make sure you live this time. Ouch! You're not gonna get me this time.
Ow, Manny!
Whoops! Let's try an easy one.
Every day we take steps to keep the people we love safe, but some health risks are easy to miss. Ticks hiding in the yard can spread germs, like the ones that cause Lyme disease. Mice searching for food can spread bacteria that makes us sick. Mosquitoes lay eggs in standing water and can spread West Nile virus and more. Cockroaches are drawn to water in the home, leaving behind allergens that can trigger asthma attacks. Common pests can threaten our health. Learn how to protect your family at pestworld.org.
Hey, this is Corey McGetty, and I listen to Sean and Maya on the morning show.
So, hashtag Friday Fun edition of the program. Sid the Kid is me. LeKeena McGee is she. You can follow yours on the Twitter, X, and the right now at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in those questions or comments in the comment section. LeKeena will get the up on the screen for you.
If you got you had a big payday if you're this week, if you're running back, especially Bijan Robinson from the Falcons, Jonathan Taylor from the Colts, and also Jahmyr Gibbs. That was made official earlier this morning. All got respective contract extensions. We'll start with Gibbs, since they made that official last night to yesterday. Of course, they made it official this morning. He gets a 3-year, $75.75 million deal, including $51.5 million guaranteed. That is the highest offensive player of the year, and also the highest guaranteed ever for a running back. So a huge payday for him. Also a solid payday for Jonathan Taylor. He gets a new 2-year, $44 million extension, and that's including the 47 max and $35 million guaranteed. That's in addition to the other contract that he signed a couple years ago. Meanwhile, also Bijan Robinson, he gets a new payday as well. Excuse me. He gets $22.25 million for 4 years, I should say, including about $60 million guaranteed, $75 million of we worked with a lot of incentives. So if you're a running back, look, we always say that running backs are a dime a dozen in the NFL, but these are 3 of the top running backs in the league. And look, I think I know some people say, well, you shouldn't be paying running backs that much. Well, I think these 3 have shown you why. Yeah, you can.
And you know what all those 3 running backs have in common? They could also catch coming out of the backfield with a lot of consistency. So that's why those types of running backs get paid. I know we're in a pass happy league in the NFL. Points come a dime a dozen. You want to see games like you playing on your PlayStation / Xbox system, but you still need to run the ball with some consistency to keep defenses at bay, i.e. see the Chicago Bears last year. But I'll start off with the individual running backs. Bijan Robinson, with his struggles his rookie year last year, he showed that he could be the every down running back for the Atlanta Falcons. He's definitely going to be more important for Michael Penix Jr. or perhaps Tua Tagovailoa this year as the Falcons try to get back to the playoffs for the first time in a few years. Jahmyr Gibbs will say in the division, he makes that offense go for the Detroit Lions? Yes, we talk about Jared Goff. Yes, he's very important, but Jahmyr Gibbs, he's one of the best running backs in the league. I know he lost his backup partner, David Montgomery, who's now rocking with the Houston Texans, but Jahmyr Gibbs makes that offense go for the Detroit Lions outside of Jared Goff. You talk about Jameson Williams or Amon St. Brown's the wide receivers, but if Jahmyr Gibbs is not doing his thing, running the rock, as the kids would say, those wide receivers will not have big years. And the third running back, I forget quickly that you talked about that they got fresh paper.
Oh, Jonathan Taylor.
Jonathan Taylor, thank you. Yeah, especially we assume that Daniel Jones is going to start the year at quarterback because he got hurt last year. Don't forget one of the reasons why the Indianapolis had early success last year before losing at Kansas City, and then their season took a turn for the worse. It wasn't because yes, Daniel Jones had a lot to do with it, but Jonathan Taylor made that Colts offense go, which helped open up the passing game and the running game for quarterback Daniel Jones before he got hurt last year. So Jonathan Taylor, he's an all-purpose running back. I know he's been ignored for a long time by casual NFL fans, but Daniel Jones, we gave a lot of credit during the first half of the year when the Colts ran up to that 8-2, 8-3 start. But Jonathan Taylor was the stir to that pot. So Jonathan Taylor is very important to Indianapolis Colts, and given their head coaching situation right now, if the Colts do not win this year and Jonathan Taylor is not healthy, their head coach could have a pink slip and link card sooner rather than later.
And Bijan Robinson is going to be interesting. Look, I know he kind of like feels that, yeah, I think he did deserve that fresh paper that he got. Remember, Kevin Stefanski's over there now, and also remember Tommy Rees, former Irish QB. He's the new offensive coordinator over there, so I'm sure he's going to be playing. You might use him a lot, so we'll wait and see what happens, especially in that very winnable NFC South. Now, Stephon Diggs, of course, leaving the legal stuff alone. He's going with a new team. He's going to be one of Jaden Daniels' new targets. He signs with the Commanders for the 1 year, about $8 million deal, but he could get more incentives, when he hits certain numbers and such. And Washington is going to be an interesting story because remember Declan Doyle's over there now as a new OC. You got Diggs and McLaren, and of course Ja'Cory Koski Merritt, Bill as they call him. They've got a good defense. Mostly young guys, of course, but you got Study Styles over there now who they just drafted, so that could be a solid defense there. But the really key is going to be Jaden Daniels, I think, keeping him healthy.
Yes. Yeah, Jaden Daniels will be the key because remember he did not play the back half of last year. You saw very closely that the Washington Commanders struggled. They did play hard, but they just didn't have enough talent. Remember the year before, Jaden Daniels was a rookie. He came in the same year as Caleb Williams did. Jaden Daniels was healthy. The playbook was set to his skill set. They got all the way to the NFC Championship game before losing to the eventual Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles. So if Jaden Daniels stays healthy, then Washington Commanders offense can do some special things. You mentioned with Stephon Diggs, he just replaces the Deebo Samuel on the roster who decided to go back home to San Francisco. So if Jaden Daniels stays healthy, Washington do have some weapons around. As you mentioned, they'll be very competitive in it. I think it's going to be tougher than what people think, that tough NFC East division.
Yeah, going to be very interesting. We'll talk about the NFC East and more in these next few weeks. Now, going to the AFC East, Osiris Torrance, who is the Pro Bowl right guard for the Bills, he gets some fresh paper too. He gets a 4-year, $78.4 million extension, and he's makes the seventh highest paid guard in the league. He went to a couple of Pro Bowls, and of course, Joe Brady, who was the OC there now, he's the head coach, loves him, and they keeping Josh Allen upright. He's one of the big reasons why, and I think especially now they're going to be moving to a new stadium, I think this is definitely a good thing. Again, keeping the guy that protects Allen's blind side.
Also, too, he'll help out in the running game as well, as we talked about last year. It looks like we've been talking about this forever. We're talking about the Buffalo Bills. Let James Cook cook. James Cook had his best year in the Buffalo Bills uniform last year. We know about the escapability of Josh Allen. Hopefully you can limit that a little bit. Remember, he injured his right elbow a couple of years ago. Not to be people want to talk about that, but you got to have a solid offensive line, especially for a scrambling quarterback like Josh Allen. Yes, he can make plays with his feet. He could throw on the run, but that running game was solidified last year because most of those guys stayed healthy. And James Cook, as I mentioned, had a great year for the Buffalo Bills last year. So that the signing was very important.
Very, very important indeed. There could be another big signing coming up as Aaron Donald worked out, if you will, for his old team, the Rams, earlier this week. Now, basically, Sean McVay's trying to, be very tongue in cheek, kind of keep it close to the vest, and like, oh, he looked fine, he looked good. I mean, blah blah blah. But it seems like unless he, suddenly, I'm talking about Donald, suddenly changes his mind. I think it's going to be a matter of not if, but when we'll get an official announcement about Aaron Donald's signing back with his old team, the Rams.
Yeah, you just took the words right out of my mouth. That's going to be a super team defensively for the Los Angeles Rams. Myles Garrett on the right side, Aaron Donald the up the middle. We talked about their secondary being revamped. Trent McDuffie from Kansas City now with the Rams. So it's that Rams defense, which was already good last year. We saw that, especially if you're a Bears fan, you saw that last year in that playoff loss. But yeah, Aaron Donald not playing for a couple of years, being fresh. You don't have to use him every down. You don't have to, but he is a man child, as you well know, and he can only make that Rams defensive line that much better. You don't have to play him every down. You don't have to pay him as much because he has all the money in the world. Just use him in certain run block scenarios and use him on the every first and third down on the passing down situations. So yeah, like you said, it's not matter if, it's a matter of when that Aaron Donald's going to sign for the Rams. He shouldn't cost him that much because, like I said, he has all the money in the world, but he definitely bring that veteran leadership to that locker room and make that defense that much better, not just on the field, but off the field as well.
And I think also, I'm sure it's going to be a lot of very incentive laden deals too. I think that's probably going to
Yes.
be the thing here with that. That's probably the parameters. They're probably still trying to figure that out. So anything else before we move on to the Diamond?
Preseason football. I'm like you, LeKeena. I did not watch not one single minute of it. Like I said, I know football's back in our lives, but it was for the highlight package that I saw here on YouTube. It was a pretty exciting game for a preseason game. Of course, the Arizona Cardinals won. The Carolina Panthers, I'm not going to say got smoked, but they lost a close one. So football's back in our lives, and the real preseason action, using air quotes here, will start next week. As we mentioned, they're bringing it back here to Chicago. The Bears played 3 preseason games, but with their lone home preseason game will be next Saturday afternoon against the Cleveland Browns.
Well, and then look, I think Haynes King got that game-winning rushing touchdown for the Panthers. Trying to make a case for him to, of course, the rookie from Georgia Tech. Trying to make a case for him being, I guess, number 2 to Bryce Young. You saw how excited he got. It actually was a very entertaining game for a Hall of Fame game. Everyone says it's a classic Hall of Fame game. It was back and forth. But yeah, of course, the other Panthers had the ball last, and they were able to make the play late thanks to King. So definitely making a case for him to be the number 2 guy behind Bryce Young. Of course, Carson Beck, he had a solid showing as well with a TD pass as well. So yeah, you didn't see a lot. We'll talk about we'll preview the Hall of Fame and Shrine ceremony coming up later on, but that was really what this was about. Mm-hmm. So if you guys can see, you guys check it out on YouTube. As you listen to Second City Sports on Sports Chicago, LeKeena McGee sitting around with you as we transfer over to the Diamond. The Cubs had a nice week this week. They swept the 2-time World Series champion Dodgers. Toronto, unfortunately, of course, they got their first game against Toronto in that series. Wasted a outing from Dylan Cease. PCA, who had a great week, we'll talk about that in a second. He scores on an error, stole second base, and of course there was an error throw, so he ended up going home in the bottom of the 11th, and of course the Cubs rallied, completed that rally 3-2 and 11. They've now have won 4 in a row. They're getting hot. One of the hottest teams in the league. So Sid, what do you think about that game and this week's series against the Dodgers?
I'll start off with the contest yesterday. Of course, the value of PCA it cannot go unnoticed anymore. As we talked about on our last couple of shows, his walk total, he's been very patient at the plate. His walk total has has surpassed the total of his first 2 years in the league. So he's becoming more mature at the plate. His defense hasn't really gone anywhere, so he still has the defensive game with his glove. But he's very smart with the base run. As you mentioned, he scored the game-winning run off an error yesterday, and he makes that Cubs offense go. We talked about the last couple years, should he be leaving off full time or not? He's leading off right now. He's doing a hell of a job at it. But when you're leadoff here, you tend to see the best what the starting pitcher has to offer. And PCA is still trying to. He is taking advantage of the few mistakes that the pitchers are throwing to him, but he's being more impatient at the plate, which you appreciate if you are a guy like Alex Bregman who had a great week this week. Dansby Swanson, Seiya Suzuki, and Tyrone Taylor, who's a newly acquired from the Mets. He played the other day, and Ian Happ. Those guys, if when you those guys and you see PCA being patient at the plate, yes, he's going to take advantage of those mistakes. But when you see PCA becoming more patient, getting getting on via the walk and stealing second, sometimes at third base, it creates more opportunities for you to drive in those runs. And as we said, LeKeena, when the Cubs are on and healthy, they're one of the best offenses in Major League Baseball, not just in the National League, but what PCA has been all year maturing. Not just off the field, but on the field as well, making those slight adjustments from this time last year. It makes this Cubs team that much better.
He had I think 7 RBIs, 3 runs against the Dodgers in that series this week. So I know he's passed Shohei for the year for MVP, but again, we'll have to wait and see and such. But we know that we'll talk about the Dodgers in a little bit here about the slump. But back to the Cubs, I think you won that game, you won that series against the Dodgers in different ways. You're able to stave off a furious rally by the Dodgers in that last game to get that series and complete the sweep there. Also, of course, you have the pitching was actually solid. Shohei Ohtani looked really good in his outing. So did Seiya. Also, Nico Horner looked really good, especially spoiling Tariq Skubal's debut with the Dodgers. So, look, I think the Cubs are starting to kind of finding their groove and finding their way. And also some of the pitching moves they made, they've been very solid, too, for the most part. I think if you're the Cubs right now, you got the team you wanted. Jed, he opened the playbook, opened the books, and was able to trade for a lot of the middle relief guys that they need and whatnot. Kevin Gossman will make his debut later on tonight against KC and such. So that's going to be interesting to see what happens with this one, because Kansas City get to take advantage of that. And look, Gossman will go up against Daniel Lich the fourth. That's the first game of that. That'll be the prime time, a rare Friday night game. We're in Kansas City. Also, speaking of in Kansas City, Clay Holmes, who another guy they just required. Talk about the Cubs. He'll face Seth Lugo, and the cap off that Royals series. Matthew Boyd, who had a solid showing a couple of days ago, he'll face Randy Dobnik. So there's no reason why the Royals, the Royals are able to take advantage of them. There's no reason why the Cubs shouldn't at least sweep. I'll say 2 out of 3, since we know that it's hard to sweep. But if you win 2 out of 3 against the Royals, I think you're good. Anything less than that will be disappointing.
I couldn't agree with you more. I'll put them on tape, as our good friend Kid Davis will say. I'll say the Cubs should sweep this team. Before we get up out of here, talk about the White Sox. Let's give. I know that Daniel Palencia, the Cubs closer, he's in the minor leagues in a rehab assignment. But let's give thanks and love to the Cubs bullpen. Ryan Rolson, Aaron Savali, who had 3 big strikeouts in his 3 innings of work yesterday. Also, Caleb Theobald, who's been struggling in the early part of the year. He's starting to turn around here as of late. And let's give Thornton some love too, who pitched Trent Thornton, who pitched the last inning before the Cubs won in the bottom half of the 11th. This Cubs bullpen, as we said, has been duct tape and Band-Aid up all year, but those guys I just mentioned, and with Daniel Palencia coming back, this Cubs bullpen can really be solidified as one of the best in the league. But the way that Craig Counsell and some of the guys that I just mentioned have stepped up, they really have done the job. And you saw that again this past week, and especially during yesterday's extra inning affair against Toronto.
Yeah, that was a big pickup. Those guys that you mentioned from these guys are some like the top middle relievers and relief guys, and that's really been the thing here. So I know that that Reed Detmer's deal turned out to not be the case, but they still got a
Hmm.
solid contention of relievers and guys that'll eat up innings. So I wouldn't be too upset. You didn't get Detmer's, but look, they showed you why you got those guys. Especially yesterday in that makeup game against the Blue Jays. So we'll see what they can do. And look, I think this should be a very dangerous bullpen for the Cubs. So we'll see.
You listen to Second City Sports Zone Chicago. Sid LeKeena here with you. Let's turn our attention over to the Southside Hitmen. Thank goodness they're done with the Red Sox for the year. LeKeena 0-7 against Boston. Boston has won 31 out of their last 36 games. The White Sox still hold a 3-game lead over the Cleveland Guardians in an ever-forgiving AL Central. Shout out to our good friend Nick Borowski for that one. Thank you to the New York Mets for sweeping away the Cleveland Guardians in the state of Ohio this past week. But LeKeena, let's get back to the White Sox. Sean Burke didn't have his great outing on Wednesday. Not good. Davis Martin got blasted in a series opener. And of course, last night, Luis Castillo made his debut in the White Sox uniform. 4 innings pitched, gave up 6 hits, 5 earned runs, 1 walk to 5 strikeouts. But LeKeena, the offense came alive for the Chicago White Sox after being shut out on Wednesday, barely scoring 2 runs on Tuesday. But the offense did its thing, but the pitching and that bullpen did not, especially the bullpen, did not hold up the end of the bargain, letting the Red Sox win a 12-11 shootout in a 13-inning affair.
Yeah, they was back and forth for a minute starting in that third inning, and give the Red Sox credit. They came back when you thought they made the White Sox could probably perhaps maybe take this game and save themselves from getting swept. Of course, the Red Sox of course came back and they showed you whether they're one of the hottest teams, if not the hottest team in the league. And unfortunately, of course, this has been like the White Sox theme here, and that I think that 11 runs make up for all the runs they didn't score in the previous games against Boston. So they
Mhm.
made up for that in that one game. We'll see what happens in Cleveland. I wouldn't be surprised if they look lackluster tonight because I think you got the Guardians coming in, and I know that they got swept by the Mets, that they're going to be pissed off. So a tired White Sox team and a pissed off Guardians team could be a recipe for disaster. So we'll have to wait and see. But again, not just the White Sox. Look, unfortunately, Davis Martin. I know you can probably say they got a new catcher there now. I don't want to hear that excuse. This has been happening for the last couple of starts with Martin. So you got to wonder,
Mhm.
is our team starting to figure him out? So that's why I always say, that's why I didn't raise my expectations for the White Sox. They've had a nice season. Look, this is your big test against Cleveland. So see if you can pass that test. You passed both tests so far against Cleveland. We'll see if you can do it here this weekend.
Yeah, speaking of Davis Martin, of course, the story came out that he was tipping his pitches in his last start against Boston on Tuesday. That can't be fixed. What cannot be fixed is, and it goes way beyond Davis Martin, is that all these young pitchers like Anthony Kay and Sean Burke, they're going to pitch more innings than they have in their careers this year. And the White Sox are in the pennant race. And I said this to somebody on social media the other day. If Davis Martin, who is scheduled to start on Sunday in the series finale against the Guardians, if Davis Martin has another outing like that again, I think you should skip him in the rotation only because that, as I mentioned, young pitchers like him, they haven't pitched as many innings because the Sox have been bad these last 3 years. You're losing over 100 games. Now that you're in a pennant race, manager Rail Venable has a dilemma on his hands. Do you use if Davis Martin should struggle on Sunday? Do you use Eric Fetty as a opener whenever Davis Martin starts, or you just sit Davis Martin down and give him a rest, give him a reset, keep his confidence up, and then the next time he pitches, hopefully he'll get back to what he was doing in the first 2 months of the season. The White Sox have some new faces, as you mentioned. I know Josh Bart injured his hand, so Edgar Carroll got called back up. But you still got some new faces in that bullpen. I like that kid for the Mets that we talked about the other day. Got picked up. He was good last night. And of course, you like I said, Eric Fetty, former starting out in the bullpen, so that should help things out. But that starting rotation, LeKeena, as of right now, even after he struggled the other night, Sean Burke is your number one. By default, Luis Castillo's number 2 right now. You can say Anthony Kay, but as I told you on Monday, following Anthony Kay's last start, against Tampa last Sunday. He gets them into me tough situations for me. Sometimes you got to limit those situations, and you come up against teams like Tampa and Boston in the playoffs, and you let too many guys on via the walks and giving up too many soft hits. It's going to come back to bite you in the tail. So the White Sox got to solidify that starting rotation. And I know you had some help on the way, possibly with Tandem with McDougal and maybe Drew Thorpe, who got tore his ACL, had a Tommy John surgery a couple years ago. You may have some reinforcement, but sometimes rookies may not be the answer. But the Sox got to search for another guy that can assimilate as a starting pitcher right now, because right now they don't have it.
Yeah, Noah Schultz will be up. I don't know why he's still in the rotation, but he'll get the start tonight against Parker Messick. Speaking of Anthony Kay, he'll face Gavin Williams. That's tomorrow's game. And in the rubber match of that Guardian series, we'll see if Davis Martin can get it together against Joey Cantillo. That'll be interesting to see if the Sox can at least get 2 out of 3 against the Guardians. But going to the rest of the league real quick. Looks like the Braves are starting to figure things out. They've won 9 in a row. They swept the Marlins. Ronald Acuna Jr. just hit another home run. So you got to think that he's probably,
he's back.
Yeah, I think he was definitely the spark that the Braves needed, and their pitch has been really solid too. I know Chris Sale had another solid outing a couple of days ago. So I think Atlanta looks like they're starting to get control of that NL East. Though the Phillies did win 3 out of 4 against the Nationals, but they might be going for the wild card. Now the Brewers, they won 3 out of 4 against the Pirates. Look, I know the Dodgers are in a slump lately. They've lost 6 in a row. I know the D-bats and the Padres are beating each other up. So I think if you're the Dodgers, you want to try to get back on track in that NL West, because look, I don't want to say that they'll lose that division, but you got both the Padres and the D-bats. They're still not within distance. They're like D-bats are 8.5, Padres are 9.5. But they're getting a little bit too close covered, I'm sure, for the Dodgers fans' taste, I'm sure.
Yeah, like I said a few weeks ago, the Dodgers can lose 10 out of the next 15 out of the next 20. They're still going to win the NL West, because even though the Padres have played well the last 2 or 3 weeks, I still don't trust them in big moments. Arizona, they quietly had a nice road trip, but they had a big stinker at home, as you mentioned, against San Diego earlier this week. So it's going to be about which one of those teams is going to get one of those 3 wild card spots in the NL. And real quick, before we get to the schedule, LeKeena, I know you started to worry about your Mariners a bit. They lost the series to the Tigers. Sir Anthony Dominguez in his debut, bad.
Yeah, 11-0. And also the Tigers, they're just the second team in MLB history to have a 10-plus run shutout win in 3 consecutive series. Of course, the Mariners, they won 2 out of 3. The A's, they did 11-0. And also they got 2 touchdowns against the Orioles later last week. And also the other team today got away back to Boston, the Bean Eaters, back in the 1890s, almost 1900s. So that's interesting there. But the good news for Seattle is that, look, they're still within striking distance of the AL West. Houston, I don't believe in Houston. They lost 2 out of 3 to the Blue Jays. I know the Rangers looked okay this week. They won 2 out of 3 against San Francisco, but I don't think they're not good. I don't think no one's going to run away from that division. So somebody needs to make a move here. Hopefully within the next week or two, somebody will get that 7 game winning streak and take control of that division.
Yeah, as we've been saying all year, whoever gets hot for 2 or 3 weeks is going to win this division, because I don't think a wild card spot is going to come out of the AL West. Let's get to the schedule for this weekend in Major League Baseball. The New York Mets will stay out east. They'll face the Pittsburgh Pirates. The rematch of the '93 World Series will take place in the city of brotherly love. Toronto will continue their East Coast road trip. They'll face Philadelphia. Cincinnati will visit Washington. The rematch of the 1996 and 1999 World Series will take place tonight in the Bronx. The Atlanta Braves will head out east on their road trip. They'll take on the New York Yankees. The Anaheim Angels will face the Miami Marlins. Oakland will face Boston. Cleveland on the south side against the White Sox. Minnesota will face Milwaukee in an important series for both teams. LeKeena's Cubs will face Kansas City. Baltimore will head to Texas to face the Rangers. Colorado will travel to St. Louis to face the Cardinals. Houston and San Diego. The Dodgers will face Arizona. Tampa will visit LeKeena's other team, the Seattle Mariners. And Detroit will stay out west. They'll face the San Francisco Giants.
your national TV games for the week. The first game, that Baltimore Texas series, will be on Apple TV Plus, as well as the Tampa Seattle series. The first game of that series will be on Apple TV Plus. Your FS1 game of the week will be the A's and in Boston. Of course, your Fox Saturday baseball. Most of you will get the Guardians and the White Sox, and the rest of you will get Baltimore, I should say, and Texas. Your Peacock games, you'll get Cincinnati and Washington. That'll be the early game on Peacock on Sunday. And, of course, you'll get Houston and San Diego to cap off that series. And I believe, if Stacey Sabathia will be doing the pre and post for the first time this season. So that should be a lot of fun. And that is your schedule. Jeff Blum, of course, former 05 White Sox champ, will be a part of that broadcast too. Of your Houston and San Diego, and also Jake Peavy as well. And that's your schedule for this week in MLB. Weekend in MLB, I should say.
Stay tuned for more sports and more fun as Second City Sports # Friday Fun continues with Larry Hawley talking Chicago Bears and the Cubs and the White Sox in a tribute to Ozzie Guillen. You're listening to Sports Zone Chicago.
Hey, it's your boy, the Superback, Sean Sierra, and be sure to follow Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms on Facebook, Instagram, and our Roku channel. You can find us at Sports Zone Chicago, and on Twitter, we are at Sports Zone Shy. Also, be sure to download our mobile app so you can take Sports Zone Chicago with you on the go.
How do you take care of your mind health?
For my mental health, I meditate in the mornings.
I have my dogs. They're the best.
I just find ways that help me just relax.
Finding things that make me happy, like being close to my family.
I meditate a lot and read books.
I have hobbies outside of the game. I'm able to switch off. I'm able to turn my brain off from the game of basketball.
Your mind health matters.
Your mind health matters.
It's a romance sport. What? It's a romance sport like that.
Your Marine Corps' way of life is to defend the American way of life. Every day, no matter where we serve, we take a stand for our nation, for each other, for us all. The few, the proud, the Marines.
Everybody in a work zone is someone's somebody.
This is my mom. She works for KDOT.
This is my dad.
This is my mom.
This is my daddy.
This is my sister.
This is my daddy.
This is my son, Scott. He was killed while working in a highway work zone. When you drive through a work zone, drive like a life depends on it. Because it does.
Back to hour number 2 of Second City Sports on the # Friday Fun Edition. You're locked and loaded, and we're live in living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago. Sid the Kid is me. LeKeena McGee is she. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter, X, and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You follow Keena McGee on the Twitter, X, here's going to IG.
We're gonna dive deeper into the Bears, the Chicago White Sox, and the Chicago Cubs, and of course, get a few thoughts about Isaac Guillen's jersey retirement tomorrow night. We have a very special guest to kick off hour number 2 of this fabulous program. If you have any questions or comments regarding those subjects with our very special guest, you can hit the comment section right now at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in those questions or comments in the comment section. LeKeena, we get the open screen for you.
He's a veteran sports anchor reporter, was just recently for years as a WGNTV producer. Now he's doing a whole bunch of stuff too. We'll get to some of that as well. But let's get right to it. The one, the only, the fabulous Mr. Larry Hawley. Larry, how are you?
How you doing? It's good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Good to see you. Glad to be back on the program. It seems like you guys are doing well, so glad to see that.
Oh, thank you. Now let's get right to it. Let's do with the Cubs first, since they're like one of the hottest teams in baseball right now. We'll start with PCA especially. Do you think he's now the favorite for National League MVP?
Well, he's right at the cusp of it, right? I mean, I think Ohtani's going to get a lot of praise. He's going to have a lot of that reputation, but he's right there. I mean, if he doesn't have the lead, it's 1A, 1B at this point. It's amazing how he goes on these heaters, because I remember last year through about mid-June, the heater he was on was remarkable. You're talking Rick Sutcliffe 84. You're talking Arrieta 2015. Now he's gone and done it again. I mean, it's pretty incredible what he's been able to do since right about the start of June. I mean, he's been on fire, and especially with the performance that he was able to have, go toe to toe with Ohtani. The Cubs sweep the Dodgers. He certainly has put his name heavily in that race. If he can keep this up and keep up this pace, I think he probably wins it. But it's a pretty torrid pace right now. But if he can keep it up, I think he might beat Ohtani and get it.
We know about this the starting rotation and their injury issues that the Cubs have been having all year. But me and LeKeena just finished discussing about the bullpen for the Cubs. Of course, they picked up a couple of big arms at the trade deadline, but I know Daniel Palencia is on a rehab assignment right now in Iowa. But talk to us about guys like Ryan Rolson and Trent Thornton, Caleb Theobar, and some of those guys that have been able to do the job over these last couple months.
Yeah, and they try to rely as much as they can. I think the starter situation is going to get a lot better. Cabrera's pitching very well in AAA. You've added 2 starters through the trade deadline, so that's going to help you out. I'm really curious to see, like, with the bullpen and Rojan and what he's going to be able to do. Theo Bar's had a lot of struggles, and obviously, he's had a difficult moment. But Thornton's been pretty good. For me, I'm curious with Palencia, and they come back and they get that real hard throwing closer, that whoever they can find for that role. But the starters are just fascinating to me, and what they're going to be able to do. The Cubs are going to be really stacked because they're going to have all those guys coming back. So that's why I think that if you're a Cub fan, you can feel a lot of optimism because you're starting to get that health is starting to return at the right time. And the club right now is playing as well as they have probably. I'd even go back in the previous era, when you had you're talking like 16, 17, where they're truly on a roll. Right now, they've really been able to find it. I'm curious if they can keep this going in August, which they did so well during the Madden years. But really, for me, the bullpen, I think is going to kind of figure itself out. One guy I really feel like could be effective out there is Javier Assad, because with the kind of glut of starters right now, I'm really curious to see if Assad's going to be able to pick up that, long relief inning role, if he can do that. I don't know if Colin Ray goes there. Again, you're starting to think of playoffs right now. You're starting to think of those long-time relievers who are going to be able to go there and, do some legitimate damage and do some legitimate holding when you get to the postseason. And those are guys I look at and wonder what they're going to be able to do. But it's a good place for the Cubs to be.
How do you think Alex Bregman has been doing? I know that he got a couple of hits yesterday. Come back in that makeup game against the Blue Jays. So have you been disappointed with him so far this year, or maybe it's just like par for the course as he's getting older?
I think it's definitely been a disappointing year when you commit that much salary to him and you expect a lot out of him. But he has his moments. He had one on Thursday against the Blue Jays. You hope those moments come more often in the playoffs. Has he done what you quite expected? No, not really. You really expected a big power bat. It really quite hasn't been there. It's just part of, things that just happen. It's not quite the end yet, but I think that if he could have good performances like yesterday and you can start to chip away at these things, you really hope he's kind of hitting stride around the playoffs, because he's one of those guys, if the Cubs are going to do more than just advance in the wild card, or they're going to do more than advance to the DS, if you're legitimately going to try to go toe-to-toe with the Dodgers to win a World Series, I think everyone's safe to say it goes through them first. You're going to need him. You're going to need him. You're going to need all those starters coming back strong. It is an all-hands-on-deck thing. But right now, I think he'd expected more. I don't think that that's unfair to say, but we'll see what these next couple months have in store.
Sticking with this Cubs offense, Larry, me and LeKeena talked about this before we brought you on, that when all systems are go for the Cubs, when they're healthy, this Cubs team offensively is one of the best teams in the league. Of course, quietly saying Suzuki's having a very good second half, but I want to get your thoughts on these guys. Michael Busch, Dansby Swanson, Nico Horner, who's had a couple of big home runs over the last week or so. What do you expect from these three guys, or do you think they can turn up to another level as we go through the dog days of summer in August?
Yeah, and Dansby's had a tough year. He's had a little bit of, there's been a lot of extremes this year for the Cubs. I think that's, right now, I would say the big theme is extremes, and he's had it. I mean, he had that run there where I think he had 11 RBIs in a couple of games. But at the same point, he's struggled hitting all year, but yet he has these incredible epic runs. Horner had a good start to the year, cooled off. Now he's, getting a little better. Michael Busch maybe a little bit more consistent in the way he's been hitting, but, you maybe expect a little bit more out of him. It's been a year of extremes for the Cubs. I mean, it really has been. It's been all over the place. I think Dansby's one is incredible. It's just been that kind of year. And, if the Cubs can hit well and you can get PCA to do a lot of damage and you can get Seiya to do a lot of damage, that's really what you're looking to. How far this Cubs team goes, in my opinion, is how all these guys are doing in the last 2 months and then when you get to October, because the year has been so streaky. Why you might have more faith that they could do something better is the fact that they're getting healthier, and frankly, they're playing a lot better. They've been a really good team after the All-Star break, and I think that those are encouraging things. But it's just weird. Like, I think about hitters, and I'm like, I remember when Nico was doing really well and then he was terrible. I remember when Dansby was not hitting at all and then goes on an epic run. Busch has been a little bit more consistent, but I am really curious to see. I mean, even PCA, we talked about it. He had a very slow start and now has exploded. He's if you were telling me 2 months ago that Pete Crow Armstrong was going to be an MVP candidate, I would have said he would have had to do what he did probably the start of last season from now until the end of the year. Well, guess what? He's done at least the first 2 months of it. So I'm really... This is a Cub team that's very curious and a lot of fun. And I think this week really helped add to that narrative with 4 impressive victories.
Now, let's switch gears and talk White Sox, because White Sox definitely came out of the gate, surprised a lot of people. They've had their struggles since coming back from the All-Star break. We'll start with Davis Martin. I know the tipping pitching thing, that's what happened a couple of days ago in that series against Boston. Do you think he can right the ship?
I think so. It's interesting. And this whole, I think for Davis, and he was so good. I actually had a chance to go see a game of his earlier this year when he had faced Chris Sale, and it was a lot of fun. I think with Davis, you're just kind of figuring out what is it going to be his next step. And I think that's really what it is for the White Sox. Okay, now you've surprised. You have gone beyond, I think, your best case scenario, where they're going to enter now. I believe it's a 3.5 game lead. It's 3 or 3.5 as they enter this weekend, with a legitimate chance to put some distance. If they can clean up all 3, a legitimate chance to put some distance between themselves and Cleveland and the rest of the division here as you make this stretch. But I think a lot of it is going to be, all right, well, do these guys have the 162 in them to go all the way? Do they have that distance? Does this group going to be able to find themselves? That's where it is for me. And Davis Martin's one of those guys because he was on fire to start. Again, best case scenario beginning. Things now start cooling off a little bit. I thought last night's game was fairly entertaining. A shame they couldn't get it, but you want to talk about it. Boston is 32-6, or I think that's their recent stretch since late June. It's somewhere around there. So losing 3 to Boston at this point really isn't a big deal. This series this weekend will tell a lot. But yeah, that's where I am with the Sox and guys like Martin. Like, all right, what do you have now? What do you have in the tank for these final 2 months? Was what you saw just the really quick progression of a rebuilding team, and this is where they edge out. This is where you kind of you figure you kind of fall out, or is this a case of where they have enough, they make the playoffs, which would be an unbelievably momentous thing, and maybe try to do something, do some damage when you get to October.
And speaking of Davis Martin, of course, he'll get the start on Sunday in the series finale against the Guardians. I've been suggesting over the last couple of days that if Davis should struggle again on Sunday, that manager Will Venable should skip starting. What would you do if you were sending Will Venable shares? Just let's just say that Davis Martin does struggle again, like he did earlier this week against Boston. Do you skip start him, or use an opener and like Eric Fetty, who just got moved over to the bullpen after the trade deadline? What would you do if this continues?
I don't know. Maybe if you think about it, I think you got to kind of work through it a little bit personally. Fetty's an interesting guy. What if they move him back in there? That's a nice addition to have as they kind of look down the stretch. I probably keep him in, at least try to do something or get something going. I think that's kind of where I am personally, because you got to know, right? You got to know. You have to know where they're going to be in a couple months. You got to see what they're going to be. And again, this is the formation of a team. It's not really, are they ahead of schedule? I think, yes. I think their best case scenario. I remember saying before the season, if they got to August and we're in a playoff race, just the race, an eye shot from the wild card where you could see it, you're 2 or 3 games back. That's a victory. You're in first place in the Central, so it's way beyond that. I'm always a person to try to let them work through it unless you feel like that. If you can maybe get them a delay in the start, you do it. But I don't know if I mess with it yet. You got to see what this group can do.
Talking to buddy Larry Hawley, formerly of WGNTV and also a veteran anchor and a producer, reporter here on Second Stage Sports on Sports Chicago. LeKeena, McGee, Sidney Brown with you. Keeping up with the White Sox here. Murataka Murakami, I know he had his struggles in the Red Sox series. I know coming back from injury. He actually has been one of the reasons why the Sox are where they are right now. So do you think he can keep it up?
Yeah, and it's another thing where now you get to see. It's funny how many mysteries are there. Murakami's now going through the league a second time. In a few instances, certainly, he missed a lot of time. All right, what's he going to have? Like, what's the response going to be? A lot of these guys are like that. He's a rookie in Major League Baseball. It's, I guess, one of the fascinating things about the White Sox is you look and you go, okay, this is great. You're kind of watching to see how this is all going to pan out. Like, that's how I do it. I watch from that perspective. All right, you've started out, you've played really well. The Sox have done enough to the point where they were buying at the deadline. Now let's see what you got. What if this team plays well the whole way and you go to the playoffs? If you don't, you don't. So Murakami's one of those guys I really look to see what's he going to do. If he can get hot, then you have a real chance here to do something. But if everybody cools off, and then you got a problem. They're not really a problem. It's like, all right, well, you saw what they had. This is where they are. That's where I kind of am with the White Sox. I think there's such an encouragement because what a playoff berth would do for a team, and specifically a fan base that's gone through a whole hell of a lot in 5 years. I mean, when we were here, I believe August 12th was the Field of Dreams game, if my memory jogs me right. I mean, we're about 5 years from, arguably one of the high points. I would say probably the high point for the White Sox since they won the World Series in 2005. I guess you could say the blackout game in 2008 against the Twins. You're 5 years removed from that. You went from having the face of baseball to losing a record in a 162-game season for games to now being, this weekend hosting a series with the Guardians where if you find a way to sweep it, you're in really, really good shape to make a run here for the final, about, look at the calendar, 6-7 weeks of the season to really do something. It's a fascinating road that White Sox fans have been on. So, the hope is that, they can make this, they can finish this off for what would be one of Major League Baseball's great stories this year.
Yeah, speaking of great stories, of course, there's a lot of unsung heroes on this team that's made this White Sox team go. Like my guy Sam Antonacci and Trisha Pierce, despite having a bad second half. Of course, Chase Mondrop, you could throw his name in there as well. Talk to us about those unsung heroes and what a difference they made for the Southside Hitmen this year.
Yeah, and you have Peters, who's obviously had some real struggles when it comes to after the All-Star break, and what a story he was. Antonacci's a really interesting guy. I think he's somebody. He started up there with Wilson Contreras. I don't know. Did he stick the up? That's in one of those good baseball debates, and he's not afraid to stir it up. I think he's going to be. I think he has a chance to be a very popular, very aggressive member of what this White Sox core will be, and I think it's really, really exciting to see, where he's going to be at. Antonacci's a really exciting player for me. And, it's a guy I think he develops up there. Peters is really a guy for me. It's like, all right, well, what do you got? Like, what do you have now? And you don't know, maybe sometimes you have a first half. Maybe he's got more. But again, it's so many mysteries you're kind of looking at to see, what they're going to do. And then Meidroth, you saw what he was able to do last night. He's another guy you may consider as being part of that plan. He has a nice night last night. It was a, wildly entertaining game despite the result, and probably a little frustrating for the White Sox to have the lead so many times and not be able to do anything with it. But those are guys that, especially Antonacci, that's somebody I'm really excited to see where he's going to go.
Now, of course, one of those exciting players from yesteryear is Ozzie Guillen. Of course, he'll have his jersey retirement ceremony prior to that second game tomorrow against the Guardians. And Larry, I know you posted a lot of videos over the years about Ozzie, some of his best moments. What are some of your favorite moments with Mr. Guillen, and how do you think he's going to be very emotional during that ceremony tomorrow night?
Yeah, and I think with Ozzie, a lot of the memories are of him. I think he was just a phenomenally strong shortstop. I thought he played really well. One of the great memories for him was 93 when he finally made the playoffs. Because remember, he wasn't there in 83. He wasn't on that team. I believe 85 was just because he won Rookie of the Year that year. He was there in 85. And then, through that stretch, they were close in 90. 91 and 92, they stalked but couldn't win it. And then to see him win it, I remember him hugging Joey Cora in second base. I think you can see it if the game is online, because I've seen it before, where they clinch against Seattle and he's hugging him. And I know Ozzie, I think he had an RBI, or did he score right? I know in like game one, I think against the Blue Jays, he either had an RBI or he scored a couple of runs. It was just, those are the memories that stick out to me, especially as a player. And as a manager, his charisma, the way in which I thought he conducted the business with the players. And then, of course, 05. There are not a lot of managers in Chicago who have their name on a World Series trophy. And he's got it. He's got his name on there. And I think it's the way that Ozzie managed, the way he was truly his own person. I think that there is something to be said for someone who is truly his own person. And Ozzie is that. And I think that's what really stands out to me. Beyond of course, the success is the reason he's there. The success is the reason his number's getting retired. But I really think he was one of the more unique individuals in the history of Chicago sports who represented the South Side, who represented the temperaments of fans, people, of what he means to Venezuelan baseball people and Venezuelan baseball players and those who are involved in the game. Ozzie was a special person for the White Sox, and it's an honor, perhaps maybe a little even overdue honor, for someone who meant so much and delivered the greatest moment for the White Sox. And we're looking at it now going on, probably the last 100 years.
Just a reminder for White Sox fans that are attending tomorrow's game, including yours truly, the gates will open at 4:40, and the ceremony will start at 5:15 p.m. for the Ozzie Guillen jersey retirement. Of course, tomorrow's game is a sellout all over there on the South Side. You're listening to Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago. Sid LeKeena here, kicking it with you as we talk to our good friend, Mr. Larry Hawley, formerly of WGN, anchor, reporter, and sports producer. Let's turn our attention over to the Chicago Bears. Larry, of course, Caleb Williams will enter year number 3 in the Bears uniform. Year under 2 under head coach Ben Johnson. He got all the props during the offseason. He's the new head cover of the Madden football video game for 2026/2027. What do you expect for Caleb Williams in year number 3? Do you think he passes for 4,000 yards? What do you expect out of the quote-unquote Iceman this year?
Well, I think I expect, progression. I expect, a little, something different now with DJ Moore gone. What I expect is to sit back and watch him what he does do. I guess for me, and I've talked about this with a few people, quarterbacks in the NFL now do not have linear progression. You're not just going to be, it doesn't always work where you just step the ladder. Sometimes you have ups and you have downs. 1 year ago, there were people asking questions about whether Tyson Bagent should start the year. That was 1 year ago. That was a year ago. People were wondering, we messed up taking Caleb. Now he's on the cover of Madden. He led arguably some of the more memorable Bears drives in the past, I'd say 3 decades, or at least even the Super Bowl era. He has what I consider one of the greatest plays in Chicago sports history that came in a loss, the throw to Kmet. I would expect progress. Sometimes things will have digression in some ways and pick up in other ways. Sometimes he'll add some stuff to his game. So for me, it's more about I want to see where progression is and where the building of his career is as a quarterback. Could he go to 4,000 yards? Absolutely. I think he could do that. I think he's got the talent, and Ben's a very good coach. And Ben has shown it, and he'll have to show too, because remember, what was everybody thinking in 2018 with Matt Nagy? That there would be a step up. Do I think the Bears have upgraded in both categories with this? Absolutely. I believe that certainly. But I think for me, it's very interesting to see what happens because, you're 1 year from a switch of head coaches. So you'll see other differences, other wrinkles. I'm really just kind of staying back and being curious what Caleb Williams is going to do, because I do think that it can be ups and downs and ebbs and flows. And that doesn't have to be a bad thing, because if you want Caleb to be there for 10 to 15 years, you're going to have growth and you're going to have it there. You're going to have things you're going to figure out. And that's kind of where I am with Caleb. I think I never last year thought, I thought last year, if Bagent is starting, you got big problems. So I was very surprised there's so many people call for that. I was shocked. I'm like, no, that shouldn't happen. And Bagent's a great player. Great story. Really great story. You want to see what Caleb can do. And he showed you. And I'm really curious what he'll show this year.
What about that defense for the Bears, Larry? Of course, now with Kobe Bryant, he's going to be out for about the first month of the season, and Kyler Gordon, you don't know when he's coming back. So how concerned are you with that defense?
Well, those secondaries, the secondary in my mind was going to be a strength coming in. I think Bryant was a fantastic acquisition. Thieneman is going to get a chance to learn, but he has a chance to be very good. And I think Kyler Gordon's good at his position. To have 2 of the 3 down, at least, I think for Bryant, you're looking probably at a first-month return. I know Johnson had said during his news conference this week he thought it could be quicker. If you're looking at 8 to 10 weeks, from this point, it's putting you, late September, best scenario, early October, worst. So I think it's a major concern, especially with Gordon, because now you're lingering in, these injury issues are now lingering in now to another year. And he's so good. These are guys who are productive, who have shown production on the field, and homegrown players, at least Kyler is. And I think that hurts that there. Now, Jalen Johnson's on the outside, and I think Jalen is one of those players who's at the top in the NFL at his position. He's one of those guys where you mentioned in the top 5 and can creep up to being one of the best in the league. So you have him there, and your hope was the rest of the secondary would join that, because I think we're all generally curious to see what that pass rush is going to be, and how much a faster Dennis Allen defense, which they've tried to do in the offseason, is going to translate to having more pressure. For me, it did start, though, with the secondary, because I felt it was very strong, and you now have 2 major question marks as you enter the season. And, oh, by the way, you want to figure out what you're going to do with that other quarterback position as well.
Last question from me, Larry, before we spring you. Of course, Jerry Payne, who you had a chance to work with when he started at WGN some 10 years ago. He announced his departure around this time last week, of course. Now that things are shifting, not just in Chicago television, but local news across the country. First, give us your thoughts about Jerry Payne, what he did for WGN, and where do you see local news, not just in the sports department, but local news in general across the country? Where do you think that industry is headed?
Well, we'll start with a TV question because I have lots of great things to say about Jared. But for TV, it's going to be a lot more digital. I hope that that there's still investment in it. I don't know what it will look like in 10 years. Will there be a traditional on-air newscast? Will it go to more of a fluid online? We're to see because we don't know. This is part of evolution as we see in everything. So I don't know. It's interesting to see. I hope there's investment. I think maybe you'll see like traditional newscasts stick around for a little longer because there is an audience for it. How much emphasis will be on that obviously has changed even when I was at WGN, where a lot of the web first. As far as Jarrett Payton goes, it's Jarrett had he had a tremendous effect on me. Jarrett, I had a chance to meet Jarrett in 2015. I was coming off of a brutal finish in my time in Indianapolis, and it was terrible. I've talked about it with a few people. I had very little confidence. I arrived at WGN in many ways kind of broken. I was doing a producer role. And I wanted to come back home. And Jarrett was that positive person through that whole time. Jarrett was there every time I was feeling down, and there were a lot of days. Sports Feed was a hard show to produce. It tested me in a lot of different ways. Jarrett was there positively every step of the way. Jarrett was there encouraging me. Jarrett was there in the dark days, the really, really dark days that were there for me on those moments where I didn't know where my career was going. I didn't know where my life was going. I was stagnant. And it was Jarrett who encouraged me to keep the faith, keep doing stuff for the web, keep doing the little videos. And it really helped to pop me out because I was like that probably for 4 or 5 years. I was not the positive person that I should have been, but I had a positive person I needed, and Jarrett was that guy. And I had a chance from 2021 through 23 to live my dream and be an online sports reporter for WGN. It is the privilege of a lifetime. If Jarrett's not there, it probably doesn't happen because I would not have been able to keep that mindset. Really, Jarrett or Josh and all that sports department. But Jarrett in particular was overly positive and was overly there and was always encouraging. And he always had a smile on his face. That's not an on-air persona. He maintains that. He maintains that vigorously. He maintains that regularly. So to see Jarrett step away, it's joyous. There's great joy that he steps away on his terms. A lot of people don't have a chance to do that in this business. I was fortunate to do that, and he was too. It's sad that the industry loses, at least in a full-time basis, a tremendously positive person whose tremendous positivity and enthusiasm for life translated to what he did in his field. So to Jarrett, I thank him. I thank him. The greatest days of my career that I cherish and cherish forever, he had a big part in it. For Jarrett, I thank him. It's a thanks I will always have, an appreciation I will have for the rest of my life.
And on that note, we'll end it right here. Larry, this has been so much fun as always. Thank you so much for joining us. Where people can find you on social media, what are you up to now, and all that other great stuff.
So follow me on Ankin Law. So I do some marketing for Ankin Law. So all of our Ankin Law social medias, it's all usually at Ankin Law for most of them. For me personally, still doing sports of a certain age, what sports is like for somebody in their mid-40s when it's for fun and not an obsession. Hawley Sports on Twitter, HAWLEY Sports, L Hawley 80 on Instagram. Also have Sports of a Certain Age YouTube channel, which I need to add more to, but trying to add more to it as we go.
Mm-hmm. All right. Thank you very much, Larry, as always, for joining us here on Second City Sports. Of course, you mean a lot to my career. Of course, I had other people that helped me personally along the way. You're one of them. And, of course, you helped me and LeKeena behind the scenes as well. So continue to keep up the great work. We'll definitely have you back here on this program down the road, okay?
I look forward to it. Thank you very much. I always appreciate you having me on.
Thanks, Larry.
Thank you.
All right. That was a former WGN TV producer, Larry Hawley, joining us here on Second City Sports on Sports of Chicago. Okay, Sid, let's, as the late, great Chuck Roller would say, let's take a 2 and 2, and we'll talk more sports and more fun as we lose sports media news, as the announcing teams have been announced for both Fox and the ESPN college football coverage, all some other changes as well, and so much more. LeKeena McGee, Sidney Brown, Second City Sports on Sports on Chicago, our Sports Potpourri segment coming up right after this.
Poof!
Hey, it's your boy, the Superback, Sean Sierra, and be sure to follow Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms. On Facebook, Instagram, and our Roku channel, you can find us at Sports Zone Chicago. And on Twitter, we are at Sports Zone Shy. Also, be sure to download our mobile app so you can take Sports Zone Chicago with you on the go.
Got it done here. Ouch! And we're gonna make sure you lit this time. Ouch! You're not gonna get me this time.
Ow, Manny!
Oops! Let's try an easy one.
Every day, we take steps to keep the people we love safe, but some health risks are easy to miss. Ticks hiding in the yard can spread germs, like the ones that cause Lyme disease. Mice searching for food can spread bacteria that makes us sick. Mosquitoes lay eggs in standing water and can spread West Nile virus and more. Cockroaches are drawn to water in the home, leaving behind allergens that can trigger asthma attacks. Common pests can threaten our health. Learn how to protect your family at pestworld.org.
Hey, this is Corey McGee, and I listen to Sean and Maya on the morning show.
Welcome back to Second City Sports and the hashtag Friday Fun Edition, the first Friday show for the month of August. You're locked and loaded, and we're live in living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago. Sid the Kid is me, LeKeena McGee is she. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter, X, and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You follow my LeKeena McGee on the Twitter, X, and the IG.
This is our sports potpourri segment, so anything goes to a certain extent. For this, our last regular show for today and for the week, we talked Bears, White Sox, Cubs, NFL, Ozzy again. Everything else is on the table sports-wise for this last regular show for today and for the week. So if you have any last-minute questions or comments for us, you can hit us up in the comment section right now at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in those questions or comments in the comment section. LeKeena will get the opening screen for you.
Back to NFL for just a little bit. Of course, the Pro Football Hall of Fame enshrinement ceremony will be tomorrow. It'll be simulcast on both NFL Network and on ESPN. There's already I think they're already doing bets on who's going to cry first and who's gonna be the first to cry and such. I know it's sort of silly. They've been doing that for the last few years or so. This year's class is led by Drew Brees, Larry Fitzgerald, Luke Kuechly, Adam Vinatieri, and Roger Craig. And looking at the list of some of the folks that are going to be they're going to be presenting these guys. I think it should be very interesting. I think I already know who's going to be doing the most of the crying. I know that Carly Ursay Gordon is going to be presenting. I think she's the first female owner to present Adam Vinatieri. We know Sean Payton, Drew Brees' former coach out in New Orleans. He is going to be presenting, and I think I saw. I'm trying to figure out who else is it, but yeah. So I know Larry Fitzgerald, of course. If you guys know his dad, former longtime Minnesota sports columnist Larry Fitzgerald Sr. passed away a couple of months ago. It's going to be a very bittersweet speech for him. I know he had been sick for a bit, and I know he was trying to hang on to see his son get enshrined. Sadly, that didn't happen. So that's going to be a very bittersweet and emotional speech for Larry Jr. So, Sid, what do you think?
Yeah, I remember seeing that clip of Larry Fitzgerald being a ball boy as a young teenager for the Minnesota Vikings back in the late 90s under the late great Dennis Graham. I'm sure that's going to get a lot of mention as well. But out of all the inductees, I'm focusing on Adam Vinatieri, and here's why. I wonder if he's going to bring this up or if someone another Hall of Famer on that stage is going to bring this up. Remember back in February of 2007, Super Bowl 41, Devin Hester received the opening kickoff, returned it for a touchdown, and his record has not been broken ever since. Well, Adam Vinatieri or perhaps maybe Devin Hester or someone from the Bears organization pop up and say, "Remember, you were a part of history during that year. Yes, your team won the game, even though he missed a field goal, but that's beside the point. But I wanted somebody from the Bears organization will pop up and say, 'Hey, Adam, you helped that guy over there, Devin Hester, get into the Hall of Fame.' Will that be brought up in his speech tomorrow? About anything else, I'm looking forward to someone's going to bring that up."
Yeah, I'm sure. I think Devin Hester is there this week, so I'm sure he's going to pop in and say, "Hey, Adam." I'm sure he's kind of going to say it like that. So, he'll probably bring that up. I know Luke Key's going to be presented by his dad, Tom. Roger Craig is going to be presented by former teammate and fellow Super Bowl champ Jamie Williams. So yeah, you got to think that those are the sort of like the cool moments and such. So who's going to swear? Who's going to be the first to cry? So, and yeah, I mean, I'm like I said, I think all 5 speeches are going to be very emotional and funny. And I don't know how I don't have the order in front of me. I know if you could say if you had the order in front of you, but I know that I believe Drew Brees is going to be last. I think I'm not sure, but like I said, I haven't seen the.
Yeah, I don't have the order in front of me either.
Yeah, I don't either. But I think Brees or the Fitzgerald. Maybe Fitzgerald's going to be presented by his oldest son Devin, and I know it's going to be like a reverse of that. So I don't know, but it should be a fun ceremony. Tomorrow. Remember, it's going to be at noon Eastern time, 11 a.m. Central time, both ESPN and also NFL Network. So you guys can record it if you can, if you're not going to be able to watch it. But it should be a very emotional and fun ceremony as always.
Yes, and once again, congratulations to all those inductees into the class of 2026 for the Pro Football Hall of Fame for all of us here at Second City Sports and Sports Zone Chicago. Let's turn our attention over to the broadcast of LeKeena. We'll start, as your favorite sport, we'll start in about 3 weeks, college football. And there's been some new faces added in for ESPN. Some old faces obviously remain as well.
Yeah, I'm not going to go through all of them because they're there's literally like dozens and dozens of broadcast teams on there to choose from.
Because you're like 300 college football teams, Division I teams.
Yeah, and also just about every team. And this is the crazy part. Said every team is on television now, even like Division 3, 2, 3, NAI. Even the JUCO guys are now on television. So. You'll be able to see if you went to those schools, you'll see them somewhere, whether it's on YouTube or whatever, streaming, whatever. But of course, the top team's the same. Of course, you got Chris Fowler, Kirk Herbstreit, and Holly Rowe, but also to Katie George, who will be replacing Molly McGrath. and that's part of that team. I got to get that freaking list in front of me. I don't have it in front of me right now, but I got to get it up real quick. But yeah, so a lot of new faces. Alyssa Lang, if you guys see her on the SEC Network, she's going to be doing the the halftime updates and pre and post coverage as well. And just so much. Of course, Katie George will join Sean McDonough and Greg McElroy. Joe Tessitore, Jesse Palmer will now be joined by Chris Button. Bob Bushuse and Louis Riddick will be joined by Story Bomatny. Dave Pass does Voracek, of course. Taylor McGregor. She's going to be doing double duty. So if you don't see her, starting in a few weeks, with the Cubs playoff push, you know why. And Tom Harden, of course, Roddy Jones and Quick Kesnick will be a part of that. So, like I said, I'm not going to go through all of them, but I know Jordan Rogers is now going to be part of the Friday Night Football coverage with Mike Monaco and Dana Doyle. So a lot. Of course, Tiffany Green and Jay Walk will be doing the HBCU games for the MEAC and the SWAC. So a lot of names, familiar names, a lot of names being switched around. You can go to the ESPN PR's site, on their social media feed. They got all of them on there. Like I said, I'm not going to be able to go through all of them, but any really big surprises, standouts, Sid?
I know Taylor Beth Davis. She got moved up to the SEC Saturday Night Primetime game.
Yeah.
I follow her on Instagram. She's a great follow. So I know she's
she's
been working up the ranks for the last few years as well. So congratulations to her. But I think we talked about this before. I think early in the year. I think perhaps maybe late spring, early summer. But Taylor McGregor, of course, like you said, she's the Cubs field reporter for Marquee Sports. She did a couple of Sports Centers earlier this year. I know she's filled in for the last couple of years on Quick Pitch on MLB Network. If the Cubs are not careful here, she may be head towards MLB Network or ESPN for full time. So glad to see her do very well. But the Cubs better be careful here. That's all I have to say. Maybe I read into this a little bit too much, but Taylor McGregor is expanding her horizons, and I'm very proud of her.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think she's definitely. I'm sure the Marquee Network I think they know that she is, that she's going to be doing a lot of stuff. That's why I think as long as they're kind of like, like what the old Comcast Sports at Chicago did with Jason Benetti. I think they know that. Look, she's going to be, her national, doing a lot of national stuff and such. So it's not going to be a big deal. So I think as long as they're able to work that out, as long as they tell them, look, you can still do it, as long as you do like a certain amount of Cubs games or whatever. They got someone good like Elise Moniker to kind of like, do it on the back end in case, if she does leave. But yeah, I'm sure as long as they can work it out so that she can still do both, I think, I don't think it's going to be a problem, but we'll have to wait and see. We'll wait and see down the line, though.
Yeah. Speaking of Elise Miniker, did you see her post on Instagram? I believe it was last week. She did I guess the Marquee Sports Network did they recreated the intro for her for the Clarissa Says It All. I don't know if we. I don't think we did that. I don't know if we did that show on that Old School TV.
No, we haven't done that show. No, we haven't done that show yet. And I saw that was hilarious.
That was very creative and very funny. Yeah, I was like, yeah, that fits her perfectly. I think she's around our age and maybe a little bit older.
Yeah.
No pun intended, but
right.
Yeah, but like that intro perfectly fits her personality.
So that was actually very cute. But like I said, they got somebody there to, and she also does. I know she still does a lot of analyst stuff too, from time to time. Whenever they get JD the day off or the series off, so look, it's fine. I mean, it's not like I said, as long as they're able to kind of work it out. I mean, it's okay.
You're listening to Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago. LeKeena here with you on our Sports Potpourri segment. This is our last break of the show for today and for the week. Any last minute questions or comments you have for us on the topics we discussed thus far on today's show, Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in those questions and comments in the comment section. LeKeena will get them up on the screen for you. Now, you said you had some nuggets on Tony Romo. Could he be headed out the door at CBS?
Yeah, I mean, there have been. Well, I guess it depends on who you talk to, who you ask. I know Mike Florio said it on his show with Chris Sims, Pro Football Talk, I think earlier this week, and and I think Andrew Marchand from the Athletic has said the same thing, that I guess it's not a matter of if, but when they're gonna They may let Tony Romo go once they start to try to figure things out with the contract, the morals clause, and such. And what's interesting is, I don't know if you've seen this all over social media this week, but I know some people said, "Well, he made a mistake." And look, that no one's saying that we're all perfect here, but you drink, you drive. That's a choice. That's not, a mistake. And apparently, this is not the first time this has happened to him, allegedly. So I'm talking about Tony Romo. So to say that, well, how could you guys say that? I mean, look. I don't want to bring this up, but I'm sure the Goudreaus would love to talk to that guy that killed their Matthew and Johnny. Like, if you want to do that kind of thing, you want to spitball and splitting hairs, you don't want to do that. So, look, I'm not saying that he doesn't deserve a second chance, but if you've seen, look, we talked about it in the last 2 weeks since this whole thing has started. Some people have said, look, CBS execs have been soured on Romo the last few years. And look, if they see an opportunity to try to get out of that 4 years that are still left in that $75 million contract, they're going to try and do it.
Mm-hmm. And I'm just speaking in general terms. I knew a couple of friends of mine that had people close to them die because of DUI. And like you said, I'm not saying people don't deserve second chances, but some things that just shouldn't be tolerated. In my opinion, like I said, this is not his first time pulling stuff like this. I don't feel sorry for you, and I'll leave it there. But when you work in television, the entertainment industry, whether you're an athlete, broadcaster, or what have you, and especially when you sign endorsement deals, there is, like you said, such a thing as a morals clause. You represent that company, you represent a brand. If anything that you do that's egregious, that steps outside that a company message, you're gonna pay dearly for it. And so Tony Romo is not the first example of that. He's not the only one. Excuse me. He definitely won't be the last.
And this sort of, excuse me, and I think CBS is doing their. We see, like, we saw. We're going to do Fox in a second here, but they do their symposium about the NFL meetings and stuff like that. So if they say, Romo might be back, in October, like weeks like 5 or 6 or something like that. The fact that they were able to, they named a replacement or a temporary replacement at least right away in JJ Watts makes me think that they are gonna. This might be curtains for him, but we'll see. But yeah, I mean, that's going to be the thing here once CBS does make their announcement. I think Monday or Tuesday. It might be right before our show on Monday. Said that they may announce their lineup, their broadcast lineup, and if he's not on there, talk about Romo, then you'll get your answer as to whether or not he's done at CBS.
Exactly. So we'll wait to see what happens there. Now, you mentioned about the broadcast team for Fox. Tell us who's going to be on our television screens coming the fall.
Well, the big thing here is that could Greg Olsen, because if folks remember, this is the last year of his contract over there. So people say he could. I know Marshawn and Florio have said that he could be the heir apparent to Tony Romo if whatever things happen with Romo and his legal stuff. But for the most part, not really big changes. I mean, of course, you got Kevin Burkhardt, Tom Brady, Aaron Andrews, and Tom Rinaldi. Those are going to be your top team. They'll call the Week 1 matchup between Philadelphia and Washington. That's the late game there. They've got Joe Davis and the aforementioned Mr. Greg Olsen and Pam Oliver. They'll call Week 1 between Atlanta and Pittsburgh. Chicago's very own, of course, current Bulls broadcaster Adam Amin will enter his 7th season. Also, soon-to-be Hall of Famer, who'll be inducted tomorrow, Drew Brees. Of course, he came in late last year, did very well. He got better as the week went on. He joins in full-time with Christina Pink on the sidelines. Once again this year working with Adam. Kenny Albert, of course, one of the original Fox NFL broadcasters from all the way back in '94.
We're getting old.
Yeah, I know, right? Jonathan Vilma, and Megan Olivia, who will be joining them. Of course, they'll call Detroit and New Orleans. Of course, Adam Amin, Drew Brees, and Christina People have to call up Bears and Carolina. That opening of that game, Week 1 of that contest. Kevin Kluger will be back on the call, who should be in the Hall of Fame. Have been lobbying them for years. Daryl Moose Johnson and Allison Williams. They team up for the 3rd straight year. They'll call Cincinnati and Tampa the early games, and also rounding out will be Chris Myers, 3-time Super Bowl champion Mark Schiff and Jen Hale their team once again, and they'll kick off the first week one will be between the Dolphins and the Las Vegas Raiders. The first start for Heisman Trophy winner Fernando Mendoza.
Yeah, speaking of Adam and me, he'll call Chicago's very own. He'll call the White Sox Guardians game tomorrow on Fox. As you mentioned, most of the country will get to view that game, of course, following Ozzie Guillen's retirement ceremony. But also to that crew you mentioned with Adam and me and Drew Brees now full time, they'll call the Bears season opener at Carolina on September 13th. And Adam and me has gotten better with football over the since he's joined Fox over the last 6-7 years. Like I said, I remember hearing about him a decade ago when he did a few games for ESPN radio during the NBA playoffs. I was like, okay, and then learning about him that he's from Chicago. Okay, of course he does DJ work on the side, and he's been getting great reviews over the last few years. Of course, he does a great job with Bulls basketball. We'll get to the Bulls probably on our future shows or what they're going to do with their broadcast booth again down the road. But he's been doing very well with the NFL. Fox, his boss has been happy with him over the last few years, and he gets to call the Bears preseason games once again this year. They'll start for him next week as the Bears take on the Browns. So the young man is everywhere and growing before our eyes.
Yeah, I remember I met him at the old IMS studios in Chicago. He came in as a guest speaker. Really great guy. I know that our old buddies, Chris Bleck and Adam Abdallah, he actually interned for them years ago. Of course, they're doing big things over at Westwood One now, and their new show is doing very well over there. But yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely gonna be interesting though. Like I said, we'll get into that, but yeah, basically no changes. There are basically no changes to their lineup, so no really big changes here. So, but yeah, I mean, I think it's but like I said, I think it's going to be kind of interesting to see, especially with that opener against with the Bears in Carolina. I mean, we'll see. It's going to both these teams kind of came out of nowhere and went to the playoffs, won the divisions. So yeah, that's going to be a very interesting matchup. Well, look, so we'll talk more about that as we get closer to it. It's not till September 13th, but I'm kind of looking forward to seeing what the Bears and the Panthers what's in store, especially since they're going to be on the road in Charlotte.
Yeah, like I said, pressure's on both teams this year, but focusing more on the Chicago side. We talked about expectations going into this year. You 7 of your 11 wins for Chicago last year came with 2 minutes, less than 2 minutes to go. You won by 7 points or less. We saw how it ended in the playoffs last year. A lot of expectations for this Bears team. A lot of the growth that's expected to happen. Ben Johnson has more of a footprint on this team right now, as we talked about to start the show. The offense looks sharp. Of course, that wasn't the case a year ago because Ben Johnson had to get used to a new roster and some of the players that he brought in from the previous offseason as they were cleaning up the mess from the Matt Eberflus regime. So now the offense is back on track. You still got to get healthy bodies on defense. That's going to be a challenge for the rest of the training camp into this preseason as they take on Cleveland, as we talked about starting next week. Then they'll go on the road to Cincinnati and Tennessee to wrap up the preseason. So challenges are ahead for Chicago. I know many people are expecting them to be one of those teams to regress from last year. It's always about 3 to 4 teams that missed the playoffs from the previous year that they'll take that next step to make the playoffs the next year. Hopefully Chicago's not one of those teams that they'll miss the playoffs after having a surprisingly good year last year.
Very interesting to see what happens there. Now, going back to the Hall of Fame game, of course, former Steelers head coach Mike Tomlin made his debut and received a lot of rave reviews for his opener, first game. He looked pretty happy doing it, and he definitely had a nice rapport with Maria Taylor and the rest of those guys over there on the Football Night in America coverage. I think. Look, I'm sure he's going to still have to get the itch to coach, but I think if you become a coach, you become a broadcaster, you realize that, hey, there's not a lot of stress. You kind of don't have to do it. You still got to prep, of course, but it's not like, monster prep work like with everything else.
Yeah, I didn't get a chance to see the broadcast last night, but I did read a couple of nuggets on the X machine. And I know that for the first time this year that they'll be traveling to the whole Football Night in America crew. They're going to travel to each game site that they're going to broadcast that week's game from. And I will give the whole crew props. They all of them wore Chris Johnson number 28 jerseys
Mhm.
from the former running back from the Tennessee Titans. Of course, he's battling ALS right now to raise awareness about this disease and raising money and whatnot. Just give NBC and that whole Football Night in America crew. They all wore the Chris Johnson 28 jerseys last night during the broadcast.
Yeah, and it did the ice bucket challenge too, some of them, so that was really
Yes.
cool to see. And of course, it was hot over there in Canton, so they were able to get dry pretty quick. So good for them, and to a great cause, honoring a good guy who's battling such a terrible disease. Now going back to college football for a second, and if you guys didn't realize, the Pac-12 is back. I know, it's weird.
Yes, who's back?
I know.
Back good.
Yeah. Thank you. Shout out to Eminem for that. But yeah, it's gonna be it's gonna be kind of interesting to see how they do this. But of course, the top team there will be Nate Gator, former Wazoo standout QB, of course, the Heisman Trophy runner-up Ryan Leaf. Also, Lauren Green will be that's going to be the top team. Ted Robinson, of course, veteran who called 49ers games for many years. There'll be Darius Walker, a former ESPNer Dalen Cuff will be a part of that team. Also, the third team will feature Guy Haberman, Alex Brink, and Kate Harrison. Your studio coverage will feature Walker will be doing kind of like a double duty here, but he also doing studio stuff as well with Eric Coleman, and of course former ESPN host and Sports Center anchor Lisa Kearney. So it's gonna be on USA coming up. So it's this is sort of interesting to see how they do with this because it's gonna be on USA. We know USA has done sports for many years. It's gonna be their first. This is their first time going into football, but we'll see how the Rays do against this new Pac-12, if you will.
Yeah, I think then they used to do the old USFL too, along with ESPN back in the day. I want to say they did.
I think so. That's why I said this is exactly be their first time doing football. I think this will be the first time doing college football, I believe. So.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Like I said, the first time for college football, but I think they did some of USFL too, if I'm not mistaken. I know ESPN did a lot of that back in the day before they got the Sunday Night Football package back in before the fall in 1987. Just one other note to close out for this show or regarding college football. Happy birthday to Lee Corso, now enjoying retirement. He turned 91 years young.
91, yeah, 91. 91 today for Mr. Lee Corso. I know he's chilling and enjoying retirement. So, good for him. So, yeah. Anything else before we disperse?
Just one last reminder for you Sox fans are heading towards the Sox Park tonight. I think tonight's game is there are still a few tickets remaining. Of course, Ja Rule is performing following the game. As long as you have a game ticket, if you want to stay for the concert following the game, it should be good weather tonight. He'll perform. He'll perform following the contest. Hopefully, after the White Sox win. For those of you that are going to go to this the game that's being sold out tomorrow for Saturday. Before the Guardians White Sox game on Fox, the Oz retirement ceremony will start at 5:15. Yours truly is going to be there. As we say all the time, again, especially in the city of Chicago, especially during the summertime, get there early, folks. I think the parking lot should open around 2.5 to 3 hours before the game. Game time says first pitch is at 6:15. The ceremony will start at 5:15. The gates will open at 4:40. So get there early to avoid any traffic complications. So I know there's other events going around the city of Chicago this weekend. So for those of you that are going to the White Sox game tomorrow for the Ozzie Guillen jersey retirement, get there early.
Should be very interesting. We'll see. We know that. I wonder how many.
One more thing, LeKeena. Yeah, one more thing, LeKeena, real quick. I know he's a friend of the show. He's going to kill me if I don't mention this. In Lot E as in easy. Lot E tomorrow around 3:30, 4 o'clock. Josh Nelson of the Sox Machine. Him and his crew will have a free tailgate for all White Sox fans, celebrating their 20 years of covering the White Sox right here on YouTube and the internet's longest running White Sox podcast. So shout out to good friend Josh Nelson of the Sox Machine, good friend of the show. He sits in a 108 with yours truly, along with the rest of the 108 crew. Tomorrow afternoon, Lot E as in easy. Next to Gate 5 at Sox Park, he'll have a tailgate celebrating 20 years of Sox Machine. Of course, their network, their podcast got picked up by the Foul Territory Network with AJ Brzezinski. So congratulations to him. He'll have a tailgate for White Sox fans and supporters tomorrow.
Yeah, as far as back to that ceremony with Ozzy, I'm sure CHSN will have the bleep button ready. So, but then again, we may have the delay. So we'll see. Yeah, we'll see. It's going to be a busy weekend. You got the Bud Billiken Parade if you're into that. That'll be tomorrow.
Yes.
You can watch coverage of that on ABC 7 at 10 a.m. Central Time. If you're into the WNBA, I think the Sky's next game will be against Caitlin Clark and Aaliyah Boston. And Indiana Fever, that game will be tomorrow at 2:30 on ABC, right after the Bud Billiken Parade, not too long after that. So, yeah, so we can keep it on ABC 7 if you're inclined to do so. But, yeah, so you got all that stuff going on. Of course, you're gearing up for those first slate of preseason games. Of course, you got MLB, you got golf, the Wyndham Championships going on right now down in North Carolina. So yeah, so a lot of stuff going on here as we get to the busy part of the season. With that said, you can follow me by LeKeena McGee on the Twitter, XQ again, IG.
You can follow yours truly, Sidney Brown, on the Twitter, X, and the IG at KID80. Be sure to download the Sports Zone Chicago app wherever you get your apps. Please follow Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms on Facebook, X, Instagram, and YouTube. And thank you very much in advance for your support.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends.
Be sure to catch Second City Sports live in living color every Monday, every Friday from 12:15 to 2:15 p.m. Central Standard Time right here on Sports Zone Chicago. One more again, as the kids would say. Be sure to catch Second City Sports live in living color every Monday, every Friday from 12:15 to 2:15 p.m. Central Standard Time right here on Sports Zone Chicago.
And of course, if you missed our interview with Larry Hawley earlier, and also when we do our divisional previews, we do our picks, NFL picks coming up starting next month, and also any other topics you missed, don't worry. You can catch the replays anytime, anywhere on Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook and YouTube channels. You can catch replays of our shows, Sean Sierra Sports, the Smoke Fellows. I know they're going to have a lot to say with Bears training camp coming up. Tomorrow. You can check that out if you guys are inclined. But even if you don't watch it live, don't worry. You can watch it anytime, anywhere, and any of our content, anytime, anywhere on Sports Chicago's YouTube channels.
And we will provide.
So yeah, so have fun at the Ozzy ceremony, and also, of course, the Bud Billiken Parade if you're going to be going out there in the South Side tomorrow. Also, enjoy all the sports that's going on right now. And of course, we're almost closer and closer to the first full preseason week of football. We'll have that and more. We may have a divisional preview coming up next week. We'll see. Just got to tune in to find out. But don't worry. So enjoy the weather. Just be safe out there. For Sid, I'm LeKeena. It's been Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago. We'll see you guys on Monday.
Go Sox! Holla!